and I am calling Mr. Kazbek Baktybekov, Chief Specialist of the Department of Geoservices with national company Kazakhstan Gharysh Sapary. He will talk about monitoring of agricultural resources of Kazakhstan with the use of ERS data. First of all, I would like to thank Rakurs for inviting us and our Greek friends who arranged this wonderful conference combining information with enjoying ourselves. This slide shows applied technology, which are mostly standard, but the third on top, from the top technology, is the one which we must adapt to our fields, to our yields and agricultural crops. This slide shows the principal scheme of services rendered by the national operator. We are the national operator. On the left are state authorities, structural units, some field work, and private and business, those who require this data. On the right, farthest right, are the satellites that we are serviced by, and the technology, set of technologies that we apply. That includes field work, collection and data processing, and so on. Here you see RBP, which stands for a Republican or a National Budget Program. Space infrastructure using, safeguarding and expanding with subroutine 102, services for the provision of space images to government agencies and organizations obtained from the Earth's remote sensing satellite system. We provide that to Agricultural Ministry for free. So what we do is assess cultivated areas, crop conditions. We monitor harvesting pace as well. For animal breeding, we monitor pasture lands and pasture lands productivity, as well as pasture degradation. For the Forestry and Wildlife Committee, we perform satellite assessment of state forest estate. We monitor forest fires, deforestation, development, wild ungulates, fodder, fish farming, and the Caspian Sea oil pollution. The Water Resources Committee is another crucial entity for the Republic, as the water is of vital importance for agriculture.
This is the monitoring of river systems, monitoring of lakes and large reservoirs, monitoring of water economic facilities, and the assessment of the safety of hydro technical facilities, and monitoring of the irrigatable areas, and the monitoring of cross-border rivers, because Kazakhstan is the state where all rivers are cross-border, and we largely depend on the quality of the water management on the territory of our neighbors. So we are forced to detect additional volumes of water on the territory of neighboring countries, and the assessment of the irrigation areas, again, in neighboring countries. For instance, the river Ili, because of of the drought, and because our neighbors, China, start to explore vast lands to the west of China, was supposed to, run shallow, but we see that the river Li has increased in water volume, but because of the warming, global warming, and the mountain ice melts. But it's not going to last forever, and it's also one of the concerns for our cross-border rivers. On the next slide, I will show to you, this is the space monitoring of important rivers for us, where we take into account to analyze the rivers and analyze the remote sensing data. Then this is the relevant and most up-to-date data based on remote sensing data, and the analysis of the structure. All of this can be seen and done by us. Now, the monitoring of the agriculture in Kazakhstan, the assessment of the arable lands, the monitoring of the periods of agricultural work, and the pollution of arable lands, and we use images from MODIS and Landsat satellites, as well as from Kasiosat satellites 1 and 2. Kasiosat 1, 2 with the resolution 6.5 and 1 meters. Next thing is the satellite assessment of the areas, cultivated areas in regions. This is some of the crops of Kazakhstan that we have done for this year. To the left is what you can see for different regions. Also, we are analyzing the levels of yields based on the regression model. So this indices can be seen at the bottom. This is our standard indices, but it turns out that they can be corrected slightly because the land and different, and the varieties are different here, and the factors of formation of this, the level of like meteorological factors, are also important to take under advisement. The monitoring of plants cultivation, this is general for northern part of our country. Then we can move down to areas, and then down still to separate farms, like Kazakhstan farm here. And we can see now we're preparing the digital map of our agricultural lands, and when we integrate it with GZK data, perhaps we'll get information for each farm field. This is the kind of GIS we have at the moment. We use data acquired from the domestic satellites, and the monitoring of agro-technical operations is done every 3-5 days during the sowing and harvesting region, which we share this data with the government and the Ministry of Agriculture. The thing is that Kazakhstan Gharysh Sapary is a purely production enterprise, and we are opening now a new scientific branch where we would be able to model processes and use new scientific achievements. Owing to this conference, we already see that we can borrow some ideas from our colleagues. We have started to model the flooding areas, spring floods, because northern Kazakhstan is a very flat plain, and if you're flying on an airplane, you can see that almost all our lakes are round in shape, because everything is flat around them. And this is one of the factors of when we have spring floods. They happen suddenly, and within 2 hours they flood huge areas. and animals and other living organisms are isolated on small islands, and it takes about 3 days to 1 week for the water to subside, because the basins which are formed there are quite large, and now we have prepared a program where we can find those basins or pools, and we can program and model how these areas are going to be flooded. At the same time, the same program allows us to use it to equalize the areas for sowing, say for exact or precise farming, which is very good for rice paddies and for some other agricultural crops, where re-wetted areas can provide different levels of yields. So we have room for improvement here. Monitoring of forest resources of Kazakhstan. Here you can see the data. We have developed a digital map of our forest fund. Integration with the data of Kazakh forestry company is fully integrated, and daily we monitor forest fires throughout the whole area of our republic, because we don't have that many forests, and such fires can damage our economy greatly. For the mapping, we use remote sensing data acquired from our satellites. This is the slide. On the subsequent slide, you can see the monitoring. These are the databases created for 226 forestries in Akmolinsk, Aktyubinsk, and eastern Kazakhstan and Jambul regions. And we have prepared digital vectorized forests for a couple of other regions. Daily on our portal you can see the epicenters of fires and the risk map as well for forest fires. The monitoring of water resources, I already mentioned that before, that we have not only flowing rivers here, but also dry riverbeds that we need to be aware of, which during the floods can also be filled up, which during the floods can take on the role of directing the water flow, and if there are some residential areas there, we need to be aware of that. Here you can see the satellite assessment of the flood risk situation after inventory of hydrological network based on the most recent remote sensing data. And now we are combining this with the mathematical modeling of possible floods in the area. On the second slide, on the next slide rather, you can see the satellite assessment of the flood risk situation. All the blue things are all the flooded areas. You see they are quite vast. And the monitoring of oil spills in Kazakhstan, especially in the Caspian Sea. It's very hard to speak about this because it's water mostly, and the oil spill slick can move around, and we see and monitor how it is being done, and we do this together with our Russian colleagues, because northern Caspian Sea is one of the richest areas in terms of sturgeons and black caviar. Now we cannot harvest black caviar. We have a ban on that. And perhaps that would be it. Here you can see some of our advantages over others, because we're among the national operators. So this is a small plug for our organization. Thank you. Thank you.